Boxing. And as people are logging in, please put your name on the chat, where you're from, what organization are you representing. We would love to hear from you. Thank you. We will start in a few minutes. This is wonderful. We get to see so many great people from different parts of the country. Delaware, Georgia, Missouri, California, Texas. Beautiful. Okay. So it's 12:03. We want to make sure that we start on time and we end on time. Bienvenidos and welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Montserrat Garibay, and I am the Eastern Region Representative and the Advocacy Chair of the National Association for Bilingual Education, NABE. I will be your moderator today for today's webinar titled Title III and Beyond, Safeguarding Federal Support for English Learners. We are grateful that you are here today, and please use the chat to introduce yourself and tell us your name, your title, and the state you are representing today. If you're having any trouble with the audio, please try checking your speaker settings or reconnecting to the webinar. A great tip is to use headphones for the best audio experience. Now, this webinar is scheduled to run for 60 minutes, including time for Q&A session at the end. We have allocated time for questions, so please submit any questions by using the QA feature located at the bottom of your screen, and you can also use the chat box to share your thoughts. But please note that the QA question feature is the best to submit questions for the speakers. Now, please note that this session is being recorded, and a link to the recording and the presentation slides will be shared to you within the next 48 hours. Again, thank you for participating in today's webinar, and thank you to the amazing panelists that are being part of this today. And now let me turn it to our wonderful NAVE president, Dr. Margarita Cachado Casas. Margarita?
Hola, muchas gracias, Montserrat. Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's urgent webinar titled Title III and Beyond, Safeguarding Federal Support for English Learners, hosted by the National Association for Bilingual Education. This marks NAVE's second Advocacy Day in a year-long series dedicated to defending and advocating for the rights of English language learners across the nation. Today's event reflects our unwavering commitment to ensuring that every student, regardless of their language, their background, has the resources and opportunities they need to succeed. We had a press conference, we organized and we mobilized with colegas across the United States, and our efforts are already making a difference. This webinar was back in June, and over 50 new articles highlighted the need for English language learners and the need for us to continue to support them. We came together and we made our voices heard. And this is the power of organizing. Thanks to that, we had the funds that were released, but make no mistake, this is not just a matter of funding. Proposed budget cuts represent a deliberate step backwards on equity, civil rights, and the promise to educate all our students across the United States. NAVE is convening this briefing because the window of action is closing and Congress is moving quickly. And if we don't act now, the damage will last generations. Our message is clear and urgent. We call for the administration, the U.S. Department of Education, and lawmakers to restore funding for Title III funding for FY26 and safeguard the future of 5.3 million English learners. The stakes could not be higher, and we will not remain silent. Every child in our classroom carries the promise of tomorrow. English language learners are not a cost to be cut. They're an investment to the future and to our country. And investing in English language learners is really investing in everything that we do every single day as educators. But the fight's not over, so let's keep pushing forward. And I know, and I want to thank in advance every single person that's here today, because together we're stronger than ever. So now, without further ado, I'm going to pass it over back to Montserrat. Muchas gracias, Montserrat.
Por supuesto. Muchas gracias, Margarita. And now please help me welcome Jeff Hutchinson from the Teachers of English to Speaker of Other Languages, TESOL. Jeff is the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy with you. Jeff.
All right.
Welcome.
Well, I'm sorry. Muchas gracias, Montserrat. I'm getting that in there. It's wonderful to be here, a privilege to be part of this panel. But I just want to echo what Margarita just mentioned about the urgency of what we're doing. The window is closing. But briefly, before I jump into that, just a quick background for those unfamiliar. TESOL International Association focuses on, enhances, and advances English language teaching across the globe. We work at all English language educators at all levels, supporting English, our multilingual learners of English. Our focus is on professional development, learning, research, standards, and advocacy. And my job affords me really the privilege and opportunity to work with the wonderful people that you see here on this webinar, our colleagues across associations, banding together, focusing together, and as Margarita said, organizing, the power of organizing to advocate on behalf of our learners here in public education. So if you go to the next, please, we'll jump right in. To give you a quick background of where we are right now in the federal process for Title III funding. For those unfamiliar, when we talk about Title III, we're talking about the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, or Every Student Succeeds Act, and the appropriations funding that go with that. The appropriations timeline, the ideal is that sometime in late winter, early spring, the president will submit a proposal for discretionary spending, which includes education. That proposal will then be discussed in the Senate and the House with the subcommittees focused on labor, health, human services, and education, or LHHSE for short. Now, part of this process, just so that everyone is aware, there are 12 different appropriation bills that must be ironed out through both the House and the Senate. And we often find that the Senate and the House are not necessarily in agreement, not only with each other, but also with the president. The past 2 years at the House side, there have been proposals. The House has proposed that to eliminate that Title III funding. But this year, for fiscal year 26, looking forward, now the House has the backing of the president in his budget. His budget was put out in May. If you may have seen that skinny budget that came out, and then later the full budget proposal was to eliminate all of the Title III funding. We're talking about $890 million. Now, normally the House will meet before the August recess. If you weren't aware, your congressional members are not in their offices during the month of August. Hopefully they're back in the district so that you've been able to communicate with them. Perhaps you've invited them to your school. I would always recommend that. Make sure that they see the impact of what they're doing there on a personal level. But the House should have met before they went on August recess, but that got postponed. The Senate, though, did meet July 31st. That subcommittee met, and then the full Appropriations Committee on July 31st did pass their LHHSE, say that 5 times fast, appropriations markup. In that passing, I believe it was 26-3, so almost unanimous. that did call for level funding of Title III. It remains remains to be seen when the House will schedule their meeting. We're expecting it to be the 1st of September. So that really is that window. We're looking at a short window. If they do convene for the markup, that's when we want that voices to be heard. I would encourage everyone to Google the Senate subcommittee and find out, especially the Republican members on that. Make sure if you live in that district that you raise your voice in that process. So that's where we are right now. The Senate has, the president's put out his budget. We know it calls for elimination. The Senate, fortunately, now it has not passed the full Senate. It's only the Appropriations Committee. They have put in their budget proposal level funding. So they have ignored the calls of the president to cut that funding for Title III, fortunately. But the fight still continues because the House has to meet. I want to be cognizant of time. I know that some of the other colleagues are going to talk about more specific ways in which you can take action in that, but just keeping that in mind, when you're talking about a window that is closing rapidly, this appropriations process is such that probably in the next few weeks the House will take that bill up. Now, what does it mean? We're talking about our fiscal year that ends at the end of September. Doubtful that we will come to any resolution between the president and the House and the Senate that would allow us to get a budget passed. So it may go into what's called a continuing resolution, which generally means level funding for a specified maybe 2 or 3 month period of time there. We don't know what that is. We don't know if it will be level funded. So all the more important that you get your voice heard in this process. Worst case scenario would be a government shutdown. Which we've lived through those before, and they are not pretty. So hopefully your voices will get there. Ideally, they would come to agreement and sign into law by September 30th. We would have a bill that would at least have level funding at $890 million. But that fight, that window is upon us, and the voices need to be heard. So Montserrat, I will turn that back over to you because I know I want to make sure we have time for our other panelists to flesh this out and make sure that we have those calls to action here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate all your knowledge and your expertise. Thank you for sharing. Just want to make sure that you are seeing 2 slides there. Just want to, if you can give me a thumbs up if you are seeing them. Perfect. Wonderful. All right. So now we have with us, we have Dr. Julie Sugarman. She's the Associate Director of K-12 Education Research at the Immigration Policy Institute National Center on Immigrant Integration Policy. And she brings over 25 years of experience to her role. And she is going to be sharing some information about Title III from NIELPA.
Great.
Julie?
Oops, thanks. Thank you, Montserrat. I'm really delighted to be here today. And so as Montserrat said, I work for the Migration Policy Institute, but today I'm here as the co-chair of NIELPA's Advancing Multilingual Policy and Practice, or AMP committee. If you're not familiar with NIELPA, the National Association of English Learner Program Administrators serves EL program leaders at the state and local level and provides opportunities for professional development, networking, and supporting equitable education for ELs and their families. NIELPA has always engaged in policy work, but in the past 6 months has stepped up efforts to publish position statements, write letters to federal officials, and provide members with training on how to advocate for EL students and their programs. As part of this effort, the AMP committee decided to publish talking points for discussing supports for multilingual learners with state policymakers, and I'll put that in the chat in just a little bit. As you all know, recent federal actions have weakened or threatened supports for English learners, especially within the Department of Education. The committee felt that one way it could be helpful is to support NIELPA members who want to reach out to state policymakers, including legislators and state education agency staff, about how the state can fill in some of those gaps. We know that states are in very different places in terms of both their political context and the supports they already have in place to support ELs. So in the talking points, we tried to highlight ideas that have support across the political spectrum and actions that build on what states already do. The talking points don't address any specific executive orders, but give ideas within 4 key areas where the Department of Education has had particular impact. The first area is civil rights oversight, enforcement, and guidance. Even before the administration rescinded the 2015 Dear Colleague letter, they have demonstrated that they do not plan to use the Office of Civil Rights and Department of Justice to oversee and enforce civil rights rules for ELs and immigrant students. As a result, it's going to fall to states to make sure that schools are meeting these students' unique needs. They should feel compelled to do so because one, the Civil Rights Act is still in effect, and two, because we know these policies and practices make it possible for ELs to have access to the curriculum and to succeed academically. To take on this work, at a minimum, states should be making sure that they are disseminating information about expectations for serving ELs and their families through clear guidance to LEAs. Preferably, states can pass laws that mirror existing federal civil rights provisions to make sure they are enshrined in state policy. The second area is funding. As Jeff mentioned, things are more settled now than they were when we wrote the talking points, but of course, Title III funding levels for the 26-27 school year haven't been decided, and it still could be many months before they are. So it's worth using this coming school year to think about what might happen if Title III funding is not appropriated for the next school year. Asking your state to come up with replacement money in the current economic climate could be a really hard lift, but states can do things like helping LEAs to use data to ensure the funding they have is properly targeted, fostering regional cooperation to share resources and expertise, and facilitating collaboration with other state and local agencies. Third, we have data, research, and technical assistance. This area was significantly impacted by the reductions in staff at the department and cancellations of grants and contracts. One piece of good news is that last week, a judge ruled that the cancellation of the comprehensive centers and regional educational laboratories was unlawful. But eliminating staff and resources in the department means less technical assistance and sharing of evidence-based resources, as well as less research to better understand how to improve outcomes for ELs. One idea in the talking points is that states can create communities of practice to build local capacity to conduct evaluations and review data. And speaking of reviewing data, the fourth area is accountability and reporting. Whether or not you think our current framework of accountability is the most effective possible system, if states are granted waivers of assessment requirements, it would dismantle an important mechanism that advocates use to pressure policymakers to allocate additional resources to ELs at the state and local level. If waivers are granted, states should clarify that LEAs are required under the court decision Castañeda versus Picard to evaluate whether their language instruction programs are effective at helping ELs overcome language barriers. So they'll still need a system to measure English proficiency and academic progress. It would be helpful to remind state policymakers that maintaining their data systems with disaggregated data helps them make targeted, efficient, and evidence-based decisions about resources and policies. So that's the summary of the AMP committee talking points. NELPA also has a companion document that was created by the local education agency committee with talking points on the benefits and assets of multilingualism for school and community leaders. And both sets of talking points can be found on NELPA's website, which I have seen has been put in the chat, which is very helpful. Thank you. It's naelpa.org. Thank you.
Julie.
And there wasn't a presentation. Sorry, I just saw that in the chat too.
No, it's all good. Thank you, Julie. You know, these talking points are so helpful, and what we really are aiming to do in this webinar is to provide you with resources that are tangible and that you can turn around and use them right away. And I feel like this document provides you a lot of great important information. So Julie, thank you so much. Next, we have a presentation from Amanda Seawold. She's the Executive Director of the Joint National Committee for Language, National Council for Languages and International Studies, also known as JNCL. And we're so excited to have you, Amanda. Thank you so much for being with us. And here we go.
Thank you, Montserrat. Gracias. Es un placer estar aquí. I am thrilled to be here with all of you today, and thank you for inviting me. My colleagues Jeff and Julie have shared some very important information. It's a lot of information, and we know that. JNCL Nicholas, which I know is a mouthful, I often remind people that we say the letters of our first acronym and sound out the letters of our second. So JNCL Nicholas. We've been around for over 40 years, and we are a united coalition. It's the only national organization that focuses on advocacy at the federal level primarily, as well as the state level, for K through 12, higher ed, English language learners, for research, for nonprofits and businesses, all in the language education field, all focused on language education. It's one united voice in Washington. And I'm thrilled, of course, NABE and TESOL are both members of JNCL. So we work together on so many different things in order to make sure that everyone's voices are heard all the time. And so the way that we approach this is to ensure that our focus on advocacy meets the mission to ensure that all students have the opportunity to learn English and at least one other language. And actually, if someone could go to the next slide, I just want to show everyone kind of who we are. Just to clarify what we do, and it's not in slideshow mode, so somebody might want to do that so everyone can see. So the different groups that are a part of JNCL Nicholas are all there because what we do is we advocate together, and we know that the advocacy has to be multilateral, it has to be multimodal, and as language people, I know we're all on this call because we're language people, we know that we need to use all of the different modes of communication to ensure that our legislators, our leaders, our state boards of ed, our district leaders all understand the importance of doing exactly what Julie was sharing before, which is to ensure that we know how is the funding happening, how is it being used, where is it being used, and how will it have a negative impact if that funding is not available. Because we know Title III has been at risk, we've been doing calls to action through letter writing. We've mobilized our nationwide network. We've sent out multiple calls to action, as well as one that we've got together with NABE to do today that we'll be sharing with you later in this call. And what that does is give you that simple, tangible way to right away get involved. You can sit right where you are and go and send an email, letters to your members of Congress. In this case, we want to get in touch with the House. As Jeff was sharing earlier, we know that the House Appropriations Committee and the House Subcommittee on Labor and Health and Education, that's where we need to focus our energy because we know that FY26 funding is at risk, and that's how you can get involved right away. In addition to that, JNCL takes part in ongoing meetings with members of Congress. We have an America's Languages Caucus, which I'll talk about in a moment. Actually, can we go to the next slide, please? And what we do is we make sure that you have easy access to all of the things that can help you get involved. This is our Legislative Action Center, and if you look at that slide, you can see all the different ways that you can sign up and get involved right away. You don't have to do anything but put your information in, and then whenever there is a call to action, you will receive that information. Our meetings with Congress are ongoing, and they're ongoing because we have the America's Languages Caucus. It is a bicameral caucus, meaning it's in the Senate and the House. It is bipartisan, meaning we have Republicans and Democrats. And that is an important way for us to ensure that language education policy is furthered, is protected, can grow, and be sustained. And that's why Title III funding is so important for a discussion that we continue to have with congressional offices. It's also why the funding that was released was impacted by the fact that some of the leaders in Congress are connected to language. And if we can go to that next slide now, I just want to show that our America's Languages Caucus, actually, well, it's 2 slides ahead, so we just wait for 1 second. But our America's Languages Caucus includes our co-chair, Senator Shelley Moore Capito from West Virginia, who you may know led the senators who were able to get that funding released. What you see on the screen now is one of the other ways we are reaching out to make sure that voices are heard. We have begun a student advocate blog, and I encourage all of you to please reach out to us if you know a student who can share a story, who wants to learn to write, who wants to write about an issue, and be featured on our website, on our blog to do so. As I said, advocacy comes from all angles, it must. And we engage with the Department of Education regularly to make sure that the meetings that we have with them include all of the need that we have for Title III, why it's important, how it's important, and how it would be detrimental to make it so that the states are the only ones who have access to it or who are running it. It needs to continue to have oversight. Title III must have oversight in the Department of Education. We continue ongoing conversations regularly with a group of us from the English Learner Roundtable to ensure that that is happening. So JNCL is involved in these nonstop conversations, but no matter what, we need all of your voices. We need ongoing growth of support, and the best way we can do that is to build champions in Congress. We know there are lots of people, Senator Padilla and lots of other people in Congress who can stand up and speak up for the importance of supporting the rights of English language learners. And we have to all speak up as advocates to ensure that that happens. We continue to expand our reach through that caucus. And if we can go to that next slide, I just want to share that really quickly. This is our America's Languages Caucus. These are our co-chairs. And you will hear their names again and again because they are the ones who speak up, who stand up. And we need more people to get involved. So if you have a member of Congress you want to invite, you can use the information here to get them involved. Last thing I want to share with you is just that we have a very important event coming up. And at the end of September, our Advocacy Action Day, which is on the next slide, our Advocacy Action Day will be happening. This is a virtual event, meaning you can join from anywhere in the country. You can get involved by meeting with your legislators, meeting with your members of Congress online to talk about the issues that are around FY26 funding. In particular, we are going to be focusing on how language education and multilingualism are essential to our economy and our workforce. This is an important way of our conversation growing with our members of Congress. Again, we have to know our audience. We have to advocate in a language that they understand. And right now, the economy is something they want to hear about. I want to thank you all for having me here today. I will share in the chat the link to register for our event. And if you go to that last slide, please ensure that you sign up for our information because we want to be sure that all of NABE's members and everyone is constantly informed and aware of anything going on. We're here to support. JNCL is your backstop. We're here all together to make this happen. So thank you.
Amanda, thank you so much. We really appreciate your knowledge, your expertise as well. And also thank you so much for being so thoughtful in providing all these different ways that our affiliates, our stakeholders can be part of this movement, right? We all have a work to do on this, and it's important that we join forces, that we don't replicate work that is taking place, but actually collaborate with one another. And that's the beauty of working with so many wonderful organizations. All right. So one of the things that we want to do here at NABE is that we really want to uplift the work that our affiliates are doing. And next we have Dr. Kate Megan. She's a professor of linguistics at Queens College of the City of University of New York, CUNY, and she's also a member of the New York State Association of Bilingual Education. And Kate will share with us the work that they have been doing as an affiliate and the wonderful work that they're doing. So next we have Kate. I see her now. Wonderful.
Okay.
Go ahead, Kate.
Thank you very much. And thanks for this opportunity. NYSABE is one of the NABE affiliates. And we're an affiliate that really believes in people power and that organizing works. So I am co-chair of the NYSABE Advocacy Committee with Tamara Alsace, and our executive committee members are Annalie Cruz Fomani, Ivana Espinet, Maeva Lopez Kasem, and Lida Raganiz. Next slide, please. So basically, we celebrated the release of 2025 Title III funds, but we've moved straight on to now fighting for 2026 because, you know, as Nancy Villarreal Dadler always says, she's the executive director of our organization. She always says, if not you, then who? But when we heard that Congress had appropriated the $890 million for Title III in fiscal year 2025, but had not allocated those funds, the NYSABE Advocacy Committee organized this emergency town hall, the flyers there on the right. It was held July 17th, and our purposes were to share the latest information, gather specific examples from NYSABE members about how those Title III funds are used in our districts and in our schools for advocacy purposes. We needed to gather those examples. And this was a call to action. We had about 80 participants, and we're grateful that so many district administrators were able to attend because that was exactly who knows how this, you know, who could give those examples. Next slide. And just because everybody doesn't know in our organization the ins and outs of Title III at the local level, we began with a short panel to talk about how Title III funds are used in our state. So we have the New York State Education Department Associate Commissioner Elisa Alvarez, and also 2 district administrators who directly oversee Title III funding in their districts. Shauna Sweet and Janet Correa Longo get the ball rolling for us. Next slide, please. And we had our amazing Montserrat Garbe, who is the NABE Eastern Region representative, and here with us to share the latest on Title III. Next slide, please. And what we did was very quickly move everybody. After the panel, we moved members into breakout rooms for small group discussion. And we asked these 2 questions. What have you heard about Title III funds for the coming school year? And how are Title III funds used in your district or school? And then we had a note taker, a note catcher that we created, basically just a template for taking really good notes to gather examples and stories for advocacy purposes. Happy to share any and all of these materials with any NABE affiliates that want to do something similar, or any other organization for that matter. Next slide, please. And we find that people want to know in this moment what they can do. And that we've also found that we get the best response when they have an advocacy action to do in the moment when we're all together. And so what we did during the town hall were these 2 action steps. We sent letters to representatives. That was thanks to TESOL and NABE, that we had this voter voice that we got to click and immediately urged them to allocate those fiscal year 2025 education appropriations. And then we had our members also respond to NABE's survey on the impact of Title III. Next slide, please. And now we have moved straight on to thinking about 2026 funding, which is a great cause for concern. And basically, we're not taking it, lying down. I mean, New York is ready for a fight, and we're here for it. So the first thing that we're doing right now is to go through the results of our town hall meeting, all of those stories that we gathered with specific examples, and summarizing those, because these examples of how Title III funds are used really showcase why this Title III funding is so essential. And that's what we've noticed our legislators need to understand, and the community in general. We're also preparing and sending letters to our New York State senators and congressional delegation with requests to meet. And our members are going to be following up with specific, reaching out to their representatives with specific examples from each elected official's district. That's also key. We find that they really respond when they know what it's happening within their backyard. Next slide, please. And we're also doing some work at the state level right now. We're asking our New York State senators and assembly members to strengthen the legal protections and allocate funding for CR Part 154, which that's the law that mandates services for multilingual learners in New York. And we are looking for a senator or assembly member to create a bill that would ensure free public education, regardless of immigration status, just in the event that Plyler is overturned. And we've now also drafted language for a resolution establishing New York as a multilingual English plus state, and are seeking an elected official who wants to champion it. So we're hoping that can be used. Oh, and this is my plug at the bottom. We really need voter voice. It would really help us with all of this work that we want to do at the local level. And also just to let you know, we're working in coalition with lots of other state organizations, professional and immigrant rights groups. And these talking points that you've given and shared with us already in this session, we're going to be applying right away. So thank you very much. Really helpful information here.
Wonderful, Kate. Thank you so much for sharing the great work that you and New York Sabe are doing to organize. I think this is a perfect example of what can be done, right? When you have the necessary tools, the people that are ready to advocate, you can really have a very comprehensive strategic plan on how to go about it. And I myself, I attended this the town hall that they had, and it was perfect. It was great. People were engaged. It was really well attended, and it's something that you can do as well. It doesn't matter if you are have a lot of experience with doing this type of work, or if you don't, there's a place for you to do as much as you can. And this is just a wonderful example of how that's done. And I love, Kate, as a teacher, I always say sharing is caring, and you are all about sharing the tools and the information that you're doing. And I love how you are able to tie what Julie was saying in her earlier presentation, right? That's exactly what we need to do at the state level, and this is a great way to do it. So thank you, Kate, so much, and thank you, New York, Sabe, for really raising the bar for all the states to do this type of work. Okay, so next we have Trisha McGee. She's the Senior Director of Communications for the Latinx Education Collaborative and Revolución Educativa from Kansas. And we're so excited to hear from you, Trisha. So you're next. Thank you.
Thank you, Montserrat. You know, you gave me a perfect lead in saying that there's a place for you in advocacy. That guides a lot of our work in making this space for all different types of community members to be advocates. So it's a great segue. Buenos dias, buenas tardes, whatever time zone you're joining from, good morning. And I do want to greet my fellow state women in Kansas and Missouri. I saw folks in the chat from Springfield, Fort Hays State, K-State, and the National Parents Union representation in the Midwest, of course. Like Montserrat said, my name is Trisha McGee. I serve as our Senior Director of Comms for two C3 and C4 nonprofit affiliate organizations. At RevEd, we believe Latino students, families, and teachers are powerful, and their lived experiences must shape policies and practices that impact their lives. We are committed to creating the conditions for the advancement of Latino youth, and today I want to share some examples of grassroots advocacy and how it's been essential in demanding justice for multilingual learners, whether it be releasing impounded Title III funds from fiscal year 25 or justice at the district local level across the Midwest and beyond. Next slide, please. Rural communities often face isolation and lack of resources, yet their educators and advocates are stepping into national conversations. I invited two educators to represent Kansas on the national press call back in July, and due to time, Casey Van Dyke was unable to share her remarks at that time. Instead, we partnered to find other ways for her to share her experience and organize others within the state. Through written testimony, a Substack article that I only wrote an introduction to, the rest of it was all her, and a webinar focused on the effects of Title III impoundment in rural Kansas that Montserrat joined on behalf of NAVE. We are really concerned that not just rural Kansas, but rural America is being left out a lot of these ed policy and funding conversations. Yet we know that many immigrant families choose to live in rural America. So these areas of the country must be prepared and well funded to provide an quality education for the children walking their halls. And so I was thrilled to see Casey stepping into her power and organizing fellow rural educators in Kansas. Next slide, please. Teachers are at the front lines. Their stories illustrate the gap between policy and practice, like many of us on this call believe, I'm sure. Elizabeth Alt, a Kansas educator, spoke during our national press conference in July while holding a 3-week-old baby, shining light on the realities of multilingual learners in her classroom in a suburban district in Kansas. While federal policy threatens funding nationwide, we can't lose sight of the power local districts have over their own budgets to fulfill the promise of a free and quality education for all of their students. Recently, that's what the picture is from. She gave public comment to her school board for the 8th or 9th time. Pictured here is how we showed up to support. Holding babies is just as valid of a way to support a teacher in their advocacy as an invite to a conference or sign a petition. Our belief is that educators should not only teach, but should be heard as advocates for systemic change. We work to provide them with support, invitations to advocacy spaces, and connections to the media, so their truths reach the public and invite other organizations to also do the same. Elizabeth did speak with local media, and she had a piece published after the national press conference. Getting these truths to light on many platforms helps influence the public for sustainable change and helped me with my baby fever, for sure. So supporting individuals is always a good way to help them step into their advocacy. So if you can hold a baby while they give public comment, that's always welcome. Next slide, please. I take a breath before this one because this one is difficult. Community members are too often silenced when they speak truth to power. Just this week, 2 days ago, Maribel Gardea, a mother and the founder of Mind Shift Ed, was arrested during a school board meeting in San Antonio for going over time in public comment. What pushed her over the limit was not anger or lack of decorum, but bilingual advocacy. Her choice to speak in both English and Spanish to authentically represent the families she was speaking on behalf of. We believe that families are essential decision makers. I share this example not as a part of our work at RevEd, but as a part of our collective work across the country, uplifting parents who continue to show up for change in their local system. Advocacy organizations must do all we can to support them when they do and when they're punished by literally being put in handcuffs. You can and should follow Maribel's work at Mindshift Ed on socials, Facebook and Instagram for additional updates on how you can support. I will note she was away from her family for 18 hours. She stepped into advocacy because one of her children has multiple disabilities and needs around-the-clock care. So for someone like this to be arrested and away from their family makes me fearful for democracy, quite frankly. So I also think Rebecca Sampson in the comments said, I love seeing all these organizations working together. This happening to Maribel and seeing the National Parents Union response and advocates across the country chiming in and demanding justice for her is a great example that we must not be quiet when things like this happen. One last slide, please. All of these examples point to one truth. Community members already hold power. Nonprofit and advocacy organizations like ours have a responsibility to create conditions where that power is recognized, supported, and sustained. At RevEd, we don't speak for communities. We build platforms so that educators, parents, and students can speak for themselves. This is how we move forward towards systemic change that reflects dignity, equity, and justice. And we got a closure slide with a lot of photos. And I'll just quickly say, oh, that's all right. Don't panic, organize. I'll pass off back to y'all. Thank you.
Trisha, thank you so much. I have known you for about almost 3 years and love the powerful work that Revolución Educativa is doing in Kansas and how empowered parents are and educators. And we saw that at the press conference. So thank you so much for sharing your testimony. I really appreciate it. So as we know, we have a lot of work to do. And of course, I had to show this slide because we don't panic, we organize. And that's exactly what we're showing you today. The clock is ticking and we have to act now, or these cuts could potentially become permanent, right? And that is why we must organize and we need to be strategic in our outreach. And this is not just about the money and the funding, but it's also about civil rights, right? These cuts attack the promise of education of every child in our nation. And our message is simple and it's very urgent. We need to restore Title III funding for FY26. And this is the moment when we need to fight back to protect our 5.3 million English learners. Next. And our call to action right here, you can do the good old emailing your House Committee on Appropriations. You can take out paper envelopes, do it the old-fashioned way. I love doing that. I love putting actually my thoughts and thinking into a letter and sending it over. You can also make a quick call, or which is even better, you can use the border voice from JNCL. You can actually take action. You can literally do it as we're finished. You can log on to it, put your information, it's sent, it's gone. Also, next, you can also share your stories on social media. We had a call to action last month where we were asking for people's stories. Educators, coordinators, parents, students, and we received over 200 plus stories. And again, we've been very careful on not disclosing their name. It's just the gist of their stories, right? And this is really important to do because we're able to share this on social media, and you can tag your House representative, and you can amplify your voice. We also are putting together a NABI advocacy toolkit, which you will receive as well. These are, again, we're giving you resources. They're the tips of your fingers so you can turn around and use them. We all have a role to play in this fight, and we're able to do it. We're able to be empowered and really use our voice, right? And you can use your voice in many different ways. And yes, sometimes your voice might shake, but you know what? You have power. The power of your stories and the power that you have needs to be shown. And we need to lead by example as educators and stakeholders. And that's exactly what we're doing. And I'm so excited that we have over almost 300 people we've had in this webinar. And yes, this webinar is being recorded. And yes, we will share the PowerPoint as well, along with all the different tools that we have. So now we're going to open it up for questions. We know that there's a lot of important questions. So if you can please use the chat and put your question if you have. I know that I've been looking and I found some great questions. But as we look, let's see. We'll give it a few minutes for people to put questions. But let me see. Sorry. Yeah.
Montserrat, I saw one question in there that I really wanted to address because it's something I've been talking about quite a bit,
Yes.
which is the rescission of the Dear Colleague letter and what impact it has. And I think it's really important for folks to understand that the Dear Colleague letter isn't law itself. It explains how the federal government will enforce the Civil Rights Act, will enforce the rules around how English learners should be served. And it really, what happened the other day with them, was putting the notice that they've rescinded the document, it doesn't really have any particular effect on the ground. For one thing, we've known that that the federal government under this administration is not going to enforce the Civil Rights Act in the way that we've seen the Office of Civil Rights and the Department of Justice do in the past. And also, schools are still responsible for following the Civil Rights Act, even without that guidance. And in the future, they can actually be held accountable for failing to follow the Civil Rights Act. So they can still use the guidance. It still exists. Lots of people have copies of it. It's still online, even with the notice at the top. And so schools should still be following that in order to provide the services that we know work for English learners, and in order to continue to follow the Civil Rights Act that is still in force. But one impact that we do know is the cumulative effect of everything that's been going on with the department, with everything that's come out of the administration.
Oh, I think Julie got frozen, but actually, thank you so
This
much.
happens. It's just,
I think you're breaking down.
I think it's the cumulative effect that she was talking about
Yes.
everything that's coming at us, right? And
Right.
Yes,
talking about how many
absolutely.
different things impact this. And if it's okay, Montserrat, I just want to add to what Julie was saying,
Yes.
which is that while this Dear Colleague letter is not law, the impact of it combined with all of the other things that are coming at the schools and coming out of the administration really do harm our ability to move forward and protect English language learners and to protect the rights of our students. And so as to go back to what we need to do is that building those advocates, developing those relationships with congressional leaders who will stand up and speak out against this and will stand up and say that this is not acceptable and that there will be pullback on this, that there will be a way to hold people accountable for not following the Civil Rights Act. I think that's where we as advocates have to champion this with members of Congress who can stand up and speak up.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amanda. Yes. And actually, there's a question for you. And by the way, we are going to be hosting a webinar in September 27th about the Dear Colleague letter. So more
Yeah.
information to come on that, because I know the importance of that. And I know there's a lot of questions, but we will have one webinar just for that. But Amanda, there's a question for you, and it says, are there particular legislators we should be targeting for Title III, state versus national?
Well, I think the most important thing right now is to fill out that call to action that you're sharing today, that we collaborated to put together, that is in our voter voice system, because right now the most important legislators are those appropriators in the House. and getting in touch with them and making sure that they understand the vital nature of them receding to that Senate numbers, which are the level funding, is one of the most important things that we can do right now. So thinking of those in the House Appropriations Committee as well as the head of House Appropriations, and those are exactly the people who your letters will go to. In addition to that, as I said, I think those in Congress who have a connection to English learning, those who may have been English learners themselves or are connected to districts and states that have a vast number of English learners who are impacted by this, I think getting them involved is very important. I mentioned Senator Padilla before, and I think that really one of the most important things that we do as advocates is research the people who represent us. I don't think we take the time to do it. It's a really easy Google search. Just look them up, know a little bit more about them, know what they're interested in, and find your pathway in to help them understand why this is important to them. Because that's the key, is when you're advocating, is to help the person you're speaking to understand why it's important for them to act as well.
Excellent, Amanda. And actually, the advocacy toolkit, we actually put the names of the committee members linked to their website, so you can learn a little bit more about them. So excellent. Thank you for that. The next question is, how do we help administrators understand that we still have to serve English learners despite the actions of this administration? Maybe Julie? Oh, or someone else. I can't see if Julie's back in the, I think she's trying to log in.
Maybe Jeff wants to take it, or Amanda.
I mean, I'm glad to talk about what we can do in the states and in the districts if you want to. What I can say is that what we need to do is make sure that we are paying attention. That's the first thing. We need to know what exists currently in our districts. If you are a teacher in a classroom, know what your district currently does, where the money for Title III funding goes, and just have an awareness. Make sure that you're speaking to the people who are in charge, and make sure you're always advocating by being a classroom teacher who is letting other people know what you're doing. And I think that's the very basic piece of it. As for what you're doing in the state, I mean, Jeff, maybe you want to talk a little bit about what TESOL does with the state affiliates to maybe connect with those departments of education in the states.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Thank you, man. One thing that our affiliates do, especially some of them do very well, is advocacy is not something that, oh, there's an emergency and now we do some advocacy. They've already structured, they've already organized, they have their regions, they have their contacts, and they are in communication, building that relationship. That being said, that is, if you don't have that structure, and that is not to say that you are not going to be effective, but you start with that and building in mind that advocacy, especially at the district level, is not going on, knocking on a door and demanding something. That's probably not going to be effective. But looking around at your coalition, your partners, who are the members, who are the organizations walking by your side? Look for the parent organizations, look for the members within the community, look for the business community as well. Because when you start talking about support for multilingual learners of English, you're talking about not just the learner, you're talking about their whole family, their whole community, and bringing them alongside to help you in that advocacy is something that our states, especially I would love to highlight Indiana did a wonderful job. Ohio's been doing a wonderful job of advocating in the face of challenges at the state level. So, you know, that just two pieces there. Advocacy is a relationship that you build at any level, and always look around for those that are aligned with you or side by side with you, and never discount someone that you might think is in opposition, because they too might be aligned with you on a particular point. And this, for the education of all these learners, will be is something that many people will gravitate towards.
Thank you, Jeff. The next question is for Tricia. Is there any advice the panel can give for relationship building in deep red states or legislators? How do we help decision makers see the importance of EL programs, funding, or for positive outcomes for immigrant students and families?
I love this question, being here in the middle of the Midwest. I do live in a blue city, but grew up with connections to rural Kansas. And that's why Casey's advocacy spoke so strongly to me. It really is, like Jeff was just mentioning, long-term sustainable relationship building. And so taking groups of parents to your state legislators, meeting with those folks, helping them understand that the decisions they make are actually affecting their neighbors, not just some concept of an immigrant that some president has sold you a story about and that you're buying into, when people see that is not only their neighbors that are affected, but the people that are running their businesses or keeping their economies going. There's a lot of economic need in rural America. And when immigrants are choosing to move to small towns, we need to make sure that these towns are also going to be okay. So if people aren't graduating from high school, they're not going to continue to contribute positively to the economy. And so I think if you can tie in the economy, that's great. If you can build long-term sustainable relationship with decision makers, that's always great. And just remind, yep, I love it. Carlene says, yes, remind your district lead. Yep, I love it. So yeah, I would say those two things. Remind them it's not just about education. It's a civil right. It doesn't tend to work with folks in deeply red states, I'll be honest. But if there's an economic tie-in, if there's something tangible that their area will suffer from if they don't address it, that's more likely to, I think, convince them. So I would take those two approaches.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Tricia. And there's a question about what legal action is being planned by the former OELA Assistant Deputy Secretary, Kathleen Leos. So if anybody knows about what legal actions are being planned, Amanda, Jeff, Julie,
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? What actions are being planned?
for what is happening right now at the national level?
Well, I mean, I think what's going on right now is this ongoing advocacy. I think that, when we're talking about what are the threats to FY26, there was a great deal of advocacy that went into ensuring that the Senate would pass something that kept level funding for most of the education programs. And that happened, and happened beyond Title III, but most education programs received some pretty good, level funding. Now, the problems with regard to the administration and the Department of Education continue. We don't see people being rehired right now. And unfortunately, a focus on that is not going to help us preserve and protect funding where the purse strings are held by Congress currently. So what we need to do is focus our energy there for now, and continue to stay connected to those who are in the Department of Education, because there are people there who are working to ensure that things are still moving along. Some of them are working in favor of what the administration is trying to do. They're all talking about that, but there are ways where we can connect with them in our meetings to ensure that they understand the importance. So advocacy has to continue despite what's going on, and it has to continue because of what's going on. When I mentioned before that we're in it to build, sustain, protect, and grow, what phase of that we're in right now has a lot to do with preservation and sustaining. And then we will be able to build and grow again. And that's the way that we have to look at it as advocates.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And I just looked at the time and we're running out of time. So I want to thank everyone, but I want to invite our president, Margarita Machado Casas, to share some final thoughts. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your incredible speakers, Jeff Hutchinson, Dr. Julie Sugarman, Amanda Sewell, Kat Mencken, Tricia McGee. Muchas gracias for sharing your expertise and everything that you're doing, and really this powerful call to action. One thing that keeps resonating that Jeff said is that, organizations are walking by your side, right? And these orgs that you see here, we're all working together, and we're walking by your side. You're not alone in this. And I want to thank everybody who joined us from classrooms, communities, university, advocacy groups. I'm looking at the chat, from across the country, for giving us your time, your energy to this urgent cause. But we leave today with 3 key takeaways. Number 1, the time is now. The urgency is real. Title III funds, which support 5.3 million English learners, are slated to disappear starting FY26 if we do not act. That deadline is less than 9 months. Listen to that, less than 9 months. The time is now. The impact is personal, right? From national associations to grassroots voices to the communities to your neighbors. We've heard from many, many people. Communities are mobilizing, and what's at stake is federal support that could be gone. Number 3 is action cannot wait. Each of us must take the steps to contact Congress, amplify our message, use, the NABA advocacy toolkit to make your voices be heard. follow each one of the organizations that are here. We're all working together. More than ever, we're together and we need you all. This is more than a budget fight. It's about equity, civil rights, and America's commitment to educating every single student. We should always be proud of what I say is, being bilingual, multilingual, and ready to mingle from Sunday to Domingo. Our languages, our cultures, our identity, our strength are not deficits, and we can never hide that away, right? As educators, we are the key agents of change, lifting and building a more just and inclusive future. So on behalf of NAVE, on behalf of all of us here, we want to thank you for standing with us. Mark your calendars, like Montserrat said, we will be, having another advocacy session. It's going to be on September 24th at 1 p.m. Eastern time. Then the webinar will focus on, the Dear Colleague letter and, English only executive order, and will be part of an ongoing series of advocacy in action. Like Jeff said, this is not something that you do. And I think Tricia said it too. You do it one time. It's an ongoing process. And finally, a very special thank you to our wonderful moderator, Montserrat Garibay, our advocacy co-chair, and for guiding today's important conversation in such passion and clarity. And our executive director, Nilda Aguirre, and our amazing board that are all here. Until then, stay connected, stay loud, stay bilingual, multilingual, and ready to mingle. Keep organizing, and because the future of our English learners depends on it. So, adelante juntos, podemos hacer esto si se puede. Muchas gracias a todos. Thank you, everybody.